I'm going to call this to order and welcome you to the Cuyahoga County Citizens Advisory Council on Equity meeting. Welcome to County Executive Ronay. I am going to I'll pass it to Julia, who has joined Clerk Bird's staff, and thank you for being so responsive to her emails. She has been on it, getting things moving that we have wanted to advance here recently. So thank you. Welcome, Julia. I will allow you to do our roll call.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Based on who I see, it seems that we have a quorum, but I just want to call roll to make sure. Chair Grimes,
Present.
Mayor Blackwell,
Present.
Ronnie Cannon,
Present.
LaRon Clayton,
Present.
Colleen Cotter,
Present.
Dr. Heidi Gollett,
Present.
Dr. Charles Maudlin,
Present.
Malak Rashid, Glenn Shoemate, Eddie Taylor,
Present.
and Janice is not here. Stephen Cavanis, Levine Ross, Yanela Sims, Sheila Wright, and Reverend Chalker have been excused. Since our last meeting, we haven't received any public comments submitted via email to equity@cuyahogacounty.us. However, we have received one request for in-person comment. I will now invite Reverend E. Regis Bunch to address the council. Reverend Bunch, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yes.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, Advisory Council on Equity. There's a genocide going on in Palestine. This county invests $16 million in killing people that look like me, black and brown people. Chris Ronayne has said nothing about it, done nothing about it. Cuyahoga County is Palestine. We have a large Palestinian community here. How dare we create this body based out of an understanding of systemic racism? That's what this body came out of. And here we are investing in murdering people that look like most of us in this room. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves to call ourselves an advisory council on equity. And we're investing in murdering people that look like us. And there's a way around it. The Prime Minister of Israel is up for arrest by the ICC. That means we can go behind the state of Ohio and say we would not invest in genocide because the ICC has determined what is happening in Palestine is genocide. And it's disgusting that we're about to celebrate Christmas when Bethlehem is destroyed. Kids' heads are severed from their bodies. And Ronayne has done nothing. He's used his white male privilege to say nothing. Because he knows what's happening in Palestine doesn't affect him. But if it's happening in Ukraine, somehow the white folks affect him. And he says something about it. But these Palestinians deserve our respect and our courage as an advisory council on equity. This county is also about to build a jail that makes no sense. The last Public Safety and Justice Affairs meeting sounded like the architects didn't want to even bother talking to the county council. When they have millions of dollars already, they don't have to, they eat counties like Cuyahoga County up for lunch. Jailing is a business. It is a business. We're killing black and brown folks, our LGBTQ community. Matter of fact, at the last county council meeting, a black woman went up under 2 minutes to give her story about domestic violence. That's how disgusting our Cuyahoga County Council has gotten. They have reduced public comment to 2 minutes. I'm glad I get 3, because a domestic violence survivor only got 2 at the last county council meeting. Black woman right here out of Cleveland was forced to try to tell us, not just forced, she was chosen at random for who should give public comment. She just so happened to get picked out of maybe 1 or 2 black folks that spoke at Cuyahoga County Council. That's not equitable, especially if domestic violence victims right here are only given 2 minutes to tell their story. And we know how big domestic violence is in the city of Cleveland and across this county. That's not equitable. We have some serious issues that need to be taken care of. I don't think it's funny. I don't think this is something that we should gawk over. I don't think we should be using our white privilege or our American privilege or whatever privilege we think we have to gloss over genocide. It's not right. And it's not okay. This body was built just for issues like this to tell the county, we need to do better. This is what it looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Bunch.
I'm gonna turn the chair back over to Chair Grimes.
I want to just reiterate gratitude to Reverend Bunch for being here, for being present to give voice. This is a Citizens Advisory Council on Equity, and we are a group of citizens and residents who care deeply about Black and Brown Cuyahoga County. And as you look at the body of work that the folks in this room are part of, we care deeply about our global community. So I just ask that we as members take in Reverend Bunch's comments, let them rest in our hearts and spirits as we proceed with our work, which we know we have strategy to set, we have priorities ourselves as a body to set, that we would allow for the outrage and the heartache that I hear in Reverend Bunch's words, but also in our community members on many of the issues that have been lifted up, and offer our counsel and offer our advisement to the county executive and county council with an ability to be present with the complexities and the pain that were manifested in those comments. County executive, at this point in the agenda, we turn it to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the council, members of the public. Glad to be with you today. I also want to introduce Sabrina Roberts, who's with me, who will be with you at the balance of the meeting. And I have another appointment in a few minutes, but I wanted to first say thanks to the chair and the committee chairs for meeting with me last week on a number of matters. Just if I can distill a couple of things in our conversation that I think we put some priority eyes on. One is the idea of, as we build, and I've said this over and over again, I don't wake up every day wanting to build a county jail. I want to build a better system of justice. And I think this committee this council has great opportunity to help us build a better system of justice inside, but probably even more importantly outside. You know, they're both important, but the number of persons who come through our system on any given day, I don't think we need to have the population as high as it is in our county jail. And I think we had a robust conversation about some things that we could tackle upstream. One of the presenters today from Unbail has I think, a helpful product and service that we should take a very good look at, and we will. But that issue of what are we doing in the justice system to frankly reduce tonight's jail population? You know, what are we doing in the long haul to bring down the number of persons in jail? As we all know, there are persons in our custody who have mental health challenges, chemical addiction challenges, other things in life where they might be better served with a specialist in a better place. And we obviously respect the justice system as it goes. But I want to find a justice system, not just a jail, that is a best case in the country, and that's what we're trying to do. So as the jail gets built out, I always say let's focus also on what's happening outside. And on the interior, I was glad that our team from Public Works has presented to the group. There's a more humane way out there than what we have today in the current county jail. Some of the questions that you brought up we'll continue to discuss have to do with things ranging from direct supervision. I think this is in front of you. In-person visitation, community and religious freedoms, enhancing program and facility operations, healthcare service, preventative care, community concerns, and local employment. Yes. We have, I think, a lot of opportunity in front of us. We just visited, I think I said this at the last meeting, but for those who didn't hear, Grafton. It's a state prison, but a very, very different place than what we see in some of our county jails, including our own. Employment training, education matriculation, trade development, all of that is exciting to me. The family visitation question you asked about, it's a goal for me that we are having. It seems so logical. Why aren't we there yet with true full family visitation? So that's something that's I want to continue to work with you. And also navigation, which again, you're going to hear from the Unbail team about. But thank you for the thoughtful exchange on not just a jail, but a better justice system. And I look to this committee to help us advance a better justice system here in Cuyahoga County. Second thing, the co-chairs brought to me a while back has to do with how we support particularly women leaders and particularly women of color in leadership positions. And we had a robust exchange with the chairs about a week ago, trying to think of ways in which we can provide a network that supports, particularly for persons who might be a first in their job, in their new role. We haven't settled in on which agency partners around town that might be, but I think we're continuing to talk about how to build a strong system of support that really addresses equity in the employment world that we're in here. So those are two things I'm excited about that came out of that conversation. I also wanted to point your attention to two other things, and then I'll give it back to you, Chair. One, really appreciate the work of one of our sister commissions, the Women's Health Commission, doing just great work. And they had a presentation from Enlightened Solutions a few weeks ago. By the way, Zoe Tosca, it's good to see you back. She was at the beginning of the Women's Health Commission, and Sabrina as well, who've developed, I think, a really, really great commission of by and for women. But it's about women's health. And the team from Enlightened Solutions, I thought, brought a very, very important documentation about, frankly, how we treat particularly black women in this community. It would not be a bad idea, Chair, I'll just suggest it at some point that this body sees the body of work from Enlightened Solutions with Project Noir. Last thing I want to say is today is a sobering day as the child fatality report came out in Cuyahoga County. There's a child fatality review board. Appreciate their work, but the statistics, which they aren't statistics, they're names. The numbers, which are not numbers, they're families, have lost. And in the last year, and this is something that the county does as a requirement, instead of taking this report, which we should get you some of these, and putting it on a shelf, we put it in front of the media this morning and looked them straight in the eye and said, we need more help. So if any of you saw Caitlin Durbin's important article this weekend about kinship care, foster care, and adoption services, it makes a difference. So to be in front of the press with the sobering story of 190 children lost in our community in the year 2023, 112 to infant deaths, 8.89 to infant mortality, that's the rate of infant mortality, which is up in our community, sleep-related deaths, abuse and neglect, unintentional injury, suicides, homicides. It's sobering that those numbers are up. We need to lean in with investments in programs and agencies that make a difference. So standing with me today was Jasmine Long, who's been here before. We can move the needle on infant mortality and giving moms a better birthing environment, reducing stresses going into it. Many of our agency partners were there, including Mount Sinai Foundation, who has underwritten a portion of our Child Wellness Center, which I'm excited will open with the centers, formerly Centers for Families and Children, to give kids a new front door with a specialist. When last year I confronted a young lady that was dropped off, as I've said before, to this group in an ambulance at a government building and tried to commit suicide in our building, there's a better way. So that child, the Child Wellness Center that we're working on with the centers is a way to lean in on fatalities. 190 names and families in this report. We need to lean in, as we know, on the state of Ohio to be a partner in things that are trafficked in our community to kids directly. Guns, opiate, everything else that's out challenging the health and well-being of our community. So it's going to take all of us in a village to bring this number down. We will turn the corner if we work together. But again, it's a report that, Chair, we can get this out to you in the body. It's a sobering statistics today, but it's not because it's not statistics, it's kids. 190 who we lost last year to all the aforementioned causes. So we're doing good work with the Women's Health Commission and this committee. We need to continue to bring solutions to problems of child fatality, which isn't the only issue in our community. But I mentioned justice, women's health, and child fatality and child well-being. Well-being being my job as county executive and my priorities. So thanks for the time and appreciate the work of this group.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful to have that kind of reaffirmation of the priorities that you've talked with us about previously, and I think this child fatality report really just further emphasizes the why those priorities are so essential. As I was thinking about my comments for the body today, I was just reflecting on the realities that have come together since we were last here as a body, and the flow of news or updates that folks are pulling back from their commitments to equity work, removing the word equity from their work, divesting in this work, and am grateful to be part of a community that is continuing its commitment and its determination to disrupt the disparities that we know are very prevalent. I'll be eager to see the child fatality report. I'm curious about what the racial dynamics are, or what that data tells us about racialized and ethnic oriented disparities, and suspect they are present.
And I'll just say, since you brought that up, it is tragically high proportion African-American young males. That's the, what Dr. Gilson brought up today is exactly, sadly, the profile of who's dying.
Yes, and so we know that legacy of suffering that persists for our young Black men and boys and young men and boys. You know, as a mother to two little boys too, it's just further distressing, but also emboldening that we have to continue this work. We have to continue to figure out how to do this work, and with intention and purpose and strategy. Our lived and living experience in this space is what we are trying to leverage as we move this work forward, knowing that some of us in this room are at a pretty high probability of receiving a phone call any moment that someone we love is directly impacted by the crises and concerns that bring us together. So I just want to express my gratitude to you all. I know that you continue the work of equity day to day and the work that you're leading and doing in the community, and coming together with this body is an additional kind of set of commitments that draw us together and that you commit to by being here, that actually add to your set of responsibilities. So I just want to express my gratitude. Since we were last together, we did sit down with the county executive, and as leaders of this body, myself, the committee chairs, have continue our commitment to coming together to engage in some systems mapping work to help us in setting our focus for recommendations that we want to bring forward to the county executive and county council to help us focus and target our work so that we can get that sense of impact in place that we all want and are striving for, knowing that there's a multitude of crises and priorities that need attention in service to equity. And we have set a date for our work to get moving in that regard. And we'll be looking forward to bringing that to this body, the outputs of this work to the body, and bringing together the committees that have been named in service to us moving our work forward. So I just want to make sure you know that that is also remaining our priority, to get the systems mapping process going and helping us determine how to focus ourselves in this work and come together with intention and potential for impact. And so thank you for your patience as that process has moved forward. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, something just came over my email. There is a positive here. Not a commercial for Metro Health. It says U.S. News recognizes Metro Health as one of the nation's best maternity hospitals. Metro Health System has been named a 2025 high-performing hospital by maternity care by U.S. News and World Report, the highest designation possible in the publication's annual best hospitals for maternal care. It says U.S. News awards the highest performing designation of recognition of maternity care is measured by factors such as uncomplicated newborn complication rates, birthing friendly practices, and transparency, racial and ethnic disparities. So that's a positive for the community. Annual study evaluated 817 hospitals across the United States. So
That is great, encouraging. Thanks to Metro Health.
And two things I just wanted to make a comment on. And the first one was just, I'd be remiss not to make a comment, considering I am from the Palestinian American community, and Pastor Bunch is somebody I know well from advocacy over the last year. You know, I echo what he has said. It has been a difficult time for the Palestinian American community, and I want to just implore and recommend if there's any ability to have a closed meeting with Palestinian community members. I'd love to help broker that, and, you know, if there's possible, through that advice, executive producer, you know, if that's something that you could possibly consider. I think that could help mend, certain feelings and, a feeling of sense of being included, and just being heard, given the past year. As Pastor Bunch has expressed, many of the feelings people are experienced in the past year. I'd love to be of service to connect with the right Palestinian American community members who you can just have open dialogue with to hear them out. The other comment I wanted to make, just as I was looking through this document, was in regards to the jail. And I know, you know, there's a lot of work ongoing to this. I know the last meeting we had, Fatima O'Day from CARECOM, and she had discussed, and the presentation was really wonderful to see, like, what's upcoming next and what we as a committee can work towards to give advice on and counsel forward. There was an incident, I believe maybe it's been almost an hour, a little less than a month, a Case Western student who does wear the hijab, the headscarf, and she was taken into the county jail. She was not afforded her, she was wearing a hoodie, but she did advise the individuals that she does wear the headscarf. CARE does have a relationship with the county jail where they provide headscarves for situations like this. The board president of CARE actually was, back in 2001 or 2003, there was a lawsuit because she had a similar situation, and this is what mended that relationship. I do think that since it's been discussed and they've had a meeting regarding this incident, but I think kind of back to our last meeting's discussion on how we remain really thoughtful and how we approach the different facets of what we're hoping to see in the new county jail, and how we make sure we're including people in the next steps, and whether there's community-wide dialogue, whether we have more organizational dialogues like they presented last time, to continue to bring in diverse partners who have either lived experience or have ability to contribute, you know, ideas on how to make things a little bit more equitable. You know, there's a lot of staff there, so, you know, right or wrong, things happen, and something like this, you know, hopefully doesn't have to happen again, but also how do we prepare the staff for this transition in the new facility, which also may have more staff given its size, all have the same cultural competency as each other to feel confident that, you know, the moves that they're making are representative of what people need.
Hello. And I was reading through this update as well. Another thing kind of dawned on me, and I'd like to just kind of like, and also offer something Reverend Bunch had mentioned, with the new central service center being considered a business. Something else I would like to put on the floor, that when it comes time to having vendors, that we really focus on those vendors that are accommodating to the families. Because all too often in the county jail, the prices for, say, commissary or sun-drive, or even the telephones can be inflated to the point where the cost is passed off to the family members of those that's incarcerated. And that too can dispel some of the thought about being big business. So when you guys are, you know, looking for vendors that's trying to, you know, bid for items that will be marketed to those that are incarcerated, I would recommend that we consider those that are accommodating to those that are, you know, impoverished.
I think that's great. To both the comments, I think Sabrina, my partner here in the building, we can, both in terms of our culturally appropriate, sensitive design, we want to speak with experts like yourself on that, and Ronnie with yourself as an expert too. On, you know, I've heard in our travels to other jail facilities, we've seen some better practices. We've seen in some places people are charged for phone service. In Franklin County, they are not. You know, it seems like a somewhat easy fix, right? And point about pricing and commissary. Should connect with you and hear more of the list of things that could be tackled. Thanks. I don't want to take up all the time.
No,
I
what's
appreciated
coming
both
up for me
comments.
is just one of the things that just needs clarity, and we I think summarize that here too, is how members of this body and also partners can engage with the work, and I know there's some complexities that are involved with that, but
Yeah, we welcome
just coming up for me too.
it. Yeah, we welcome it for sure, which is a good segue to that.
Yeah, thank you for your time. County Executive. We do need to get to some new business here really quickly. So the first would be approval of our minutes from September 25th. And they were distributed on October 16th, so hopefully you all have had a chance to review those. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion from Member Blackwell, and seconded by Member Cotter. Is there any further discussion that's needed? Okay. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and the minutes are accepted. With that, we are going to move into the presentation from Unveil. We have two presentations actually today. I'll ask Julie if you'll introduce our first presentation.
Sure.
Presenter.
So our first presentation will be from Kate Kennedy from Unveil Labs regarding a court chat project she is championing. Kate is an advocate, researcher, and social impact entrepreneur, uniting impactful solutions with research-based evidence. She is the executive director and co-founder of Unveil Labs, a nonprofit technology studio helping local government better serve the Cleveland community, focusing primarily on issues within the criminal legal system. Kate has experience with on-the-ground organizing, data analysis, social impact innovation, and voter engagement, with a particular focus in underrepresented communities. She recently concluded her term as a visiting assistant professor in the Department of Sociology and Politics and as assistant director of the Community Research Institute at Baldwin-Wallace University. She is also a Cleveland Community Police Commissioner and an advanced associate for the Executive Office of President Biden. She is focused on implementation, execution, and evaluation of court chat. This includes fundraising and government relations, recruitment, data analysis, authorizing deliverables, and disseminating information to the public. Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julia. Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with you. I had a presentation.
Yes.
Oh, great. Awesome. Here it is. Fabulous. Just want to express my gratitude for the invitation to come today. I'm really pleased. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here, to be with you, to also witness what you're doing. It's really meaningful to me, and just want to thank you for doing what you're doing. My name is Kate Kennedy. I'm executive director and co-founder of Unveil Labs. I want to tell you a little bit about our organization. We're a nonprofit technology studio, and our focus is helping governments and court systems better serve their communities. And we use technology as a vehicle to do that. And one of the ways that we make sure that we stay mission focused and that we're serving the community, particularly defendants and particularly for folks who are disproportionately impacted by the criminal legal system, is maintaining that nonprofit status and making sure that we can target our services to our end user, which are defendants. Can I have the next slide? Wonderful. So, as I'm sure all of you are well aware, information about the criminal legal system can be really hard to access. And we've spoken to many defendants navigating cases, and what they tell us is that oftentimes they feel unprepared, and that can compound existing stressors. On top of that, we also know that the criminal legal system disproportionately impacts a lot of different communities, especially in Cuyahoga County, including but not limited to Black community, transgender community, communities for folks who haven't completed their high school education, for folks who make under $15,000 a year, folks who are substance abuse dependent, and those who are navigating mental health disorders and challenges. So the complexity of the legal system can really disproportionately impact people who are already disproportionately impacted by the system. Can I have the next slide, please? So one of the problems that we've discovered is that defendants, because of a lack of knowledge about the criminal legal system in general, sometimes don't understand what's being asked of them throughout the legal process. And sometimes that can result in missing court dates, in maybe not understanding what they're being asked in a court appearance, for example. these can have real life consequences, and I'll just share one of personal experience. So I had two family members when I was a kid charged with similar crimes at a similar time, and one of them had a lot of experience navigating the legal system, and one did not. And the one who had experience navigating the system was able to pretty swiftly resolve their case. But the one who didn't have so much experience left his apartment one day thinking that he's going to a routine court appearance and didn't come back to his apartment for 7 months because he didn't realize or understand what was happening during his court appearance. And I don't know if you've ever left your house for 7 months before, but the way that that blows up your life is like pretty extreme, and it was extreme for him as well. So those are the types of problems that we're trying to solve for. It's also why I'm involved in this work and is pretty much my North Star. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So to address the issues that we're talking about today, we created Court Chat. And this is a service that's provided over SMS that goes beyond sort of the traditional texting service and really becomes a personal assistant for defendants navigating the legal system. So if you see here on the slide, Court Chat, for example, will greet you. It will tell you what your next court appearance is, where it is, and then also provide some really helpful context about what's happening. And so what we're trying to address is a lack of information, but also empower defendants with knowledge so they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. So in addition to being like a personal assistant, we're also really focused on civic education in the lane of criminal justice. On the next slide, please. So something that's really helpful and that we've built into Court Chat is the ability for defendants to prepare for upcoming court dates and learning about topics along the way. For example, what is an arraignment? What's going to happen there? You'll be officially charged, for example. What do I have to do after that? We've developed this product in partnership with the Public Defender's Office to make sure that we're not providing legal advice because we can't legally do that, but rather legal information. So making sure that we're not crossing that boundary. Another important component about Court Chat that also differentiates us from other texting platforms and services is that our users can text Court Chat back. So it's a two-way texting service. And so we're able to answer defendants' questions as long as it is in the lane of legal information and not legal advice. On the next slide, please. Wonderful.
Okay,
So-
just one question before you leave that. Once again, who's kind of on the other side of it in terms of advice givers and counsel?
Thank you for asking that question. So there's two parts to that answer. The first is we developed a library of case updates that translates the information that is on the docket into like user-friendly, approachable language. I don't know, has anyone here been on the docket, like looking at case updates and stuff? It can be sometimes hard to navigate. So anyway, so we built a library of case updates that provides basically translates the information into user-friendly language, and then we send that update to our user. So that's one source of information. The second source of information is that we've partnered with the law clinic at Case Western. So when we get a question that we don't already have the answer to in our case library, that question gets sent to the law clinic, and the law students will answer that question within 48 hours. Thank you for that question. Yeah, please.
I don't know if this is in your presentation later on, but so far, the developments we've had, which I think this is fascinating work already, is the application in multiple languages, or is it so far in its current state just in English?
It's just in English, but we definitely plan to expand into other languages, and then just like also different like communication modalities as well. So our intention is to be like much more expansive and inclusive. We're in sort of an expanded pilot phase right now, which I'll get into in a second. And so once we're launched, we're hoping to sort of add those components on. Are there other questions I can answer? Okay, wonderful, thank you. So what sets us apart? One is ease of access. It's really easy to sign up for CoreChat. It's an online sign-up form that takes literally 30 seconds. The current texting program that the county uses, you have to like sign up in person and sign up on a paper form. The second is, to our knowledge, other texting services don't provide legal education and information. Just kind of updates about like what's happening. So we believe that education is a really critical missing piece, and we believe that's the case because we've talked to countless defendants who have basically told us that. And so the education piece is definitely something that sets us apart. And then also our updates, our scraper scrapes the docket basically in the middle of the night as to not disturb any web traffic. And so these important updates are sent in a very timely fashion. So people get updates when they need them rather than sometimes notices go out in the mail. As we know, those things can sometimes not super reliable, get lost. And then also sometimes phone calls get sent to spam, which is usually the other way that folks are notified. So this is a little bit more of a,
OT maker, I just got a question.
Oh, yeah, sure. So defendants are able to use whatever phone number they want to get the updates. And then also, we offer the option for defendants if they want a loved one to sign up for CoreChat, like on their behalf, right? So if you are in jail, chances are you don't have access to your phone. So, if someone on the outside wants to sign up for you, they can do that. And also, it's really helpful to have that education extended to the family, right? Because from personal experience, certainly, and also experience in this work, the criminal legal system is sort of like a ripple effect, right? So if one person's impacted, the family's impacted, the community's impacted. So we also wanted to be really mindful of that when we developed this product.
Thanks for answering my question.
Yes. Oh, did I?
Yes, I was
Yes.
going to
All
ask,
right, cool.
how
Thank
does
you.
this platform work for someone that's actually incarcerated? So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really critical issue. And then obviously the communication between family and person that's incarcerated is a challenge, and getting information back and forth. So that's why we built that in.
I guess the second question is a possibility to have kiosks set up, say, in a city jail, county jail, so people can have access to them.
Yeah, so we're very open to that discussion and being in person, being an in-person presence as well. And I think also to your point, for kind of a later on overall launch strategy, we're gonna have to do a lot of in-person work to kind of introduce ourselves and get folks comfortable with us to sign up. So I totally agree. Yes.
Have you had any pushback, or what are some of your major challenges?
Not pushback so much, but it's sometimes, so we're very focused on kind of thinking out of the box, being creative, being innovative. And it's sometimes hard to do that within the context that we're doing it, right? In a local government context or in a court context. The system's just not really set up necessarily to be super, to receive that in a timely fashion. So one thing that we really focus on is being really knowledgeable and effective in the implementation piece. And so my background is in both politics and government, and so that has really the information that I've been able to accumulate over time through that experience has been really helpful in this project in a way that you might not necessarily expect.
Have you presented this to legal aid society, for example?
Yes. We have, I have some brochures here if you all are interested, and we have some of our supporters on the back of our brochure. But the Legal Aid Society has been a great supporter of ours. Yes.
and I do want you to get back to your presentation,
Yeah.
but last question. So is the platform just geared towards individuals that's facing like criminal charges? Or is
Yes.
it available, say, for if someone is up for like, say, an eviction, and they want to understand how to navigate that process also?
Great, thank you for the question. So right now, we are set up for felony charges, so felony defendants in the Court of Common Pleas in Cuyahoga County, which is why I'm sitting in front of all of you today. Our intention is to also extend to municipal courts. We've had interest expressed from other municipalities across the country in us bringing our product to them. So there's quite a bit of interest in expanding this, and so this is a really exciting opportunity to sort of have Cuyahoga County be like a launching pad and an incubator for hopefully something that can really help a lot of people. That's my hope. And then to answer the other part of your question is that we're very interested in some of like the civil pieces as well, because we know that that frustration and lack of information is there too, and exactly as you just said, an eviction case, for example. So yeah, so I think it's really our interest and passion is definitely there, but we're sort of in the process of building this thing, I guess. Other questions? Yeah.
In terms of bringing access to family members, what does that process look like? And is there an opportunity for them to reverse that? Like, is it through a release of information?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So, the court chat doesn't, so everything that's available on the docket is available on court chat, and court chat doesn't access any information that's like behind the docket, if that makes sense. So it's nothing that is protected information at all. It's like, it's not connected to the case management system necessarily.
You might actually get this in your next slide, but when, has there been so far in the pilot a situation where anyone has maybe had to have a change in phone number and they were enrolled? How would that look like if people need to update information because they changed their phone number, lost their phone, or something similar?
Totally. So that hasn't happened. So I'll tell you kind of like what happened in our smaller pilot and then what we're hoping to study in our larger pilot. In our smaller pilot, that did not happen, but doesn't mean it won't happen. They could basically just re-sign up. That's the short answer. That's pretty easy to do, and we're happy to do that. Other questions?
In your next slide, when you say smaller pilot, can you maybe get into this next slide?
Yes, let's get into the next slide. So we did a very small trial pilot here at the Court of Common Pleas, and we had 100 defendants pressure test court chat, and our engagement rate was 20%, which exceeded our goal and expectation. So we found overall, defendants were very interested in the information that court chat was providing. They asked court chat questions, they opened the text messages. So we felt like there was definitely, there was some clicking happening, right? So what we would like to do next is study this question, which is the change in court appearance rates based on those who have access to court chat. So the proposal that you have in front of you is our RCT outlined in detail, where we would like to recruit 600 participants this time. Everyone would be compensated for their participation. Everyone would be randomly put into groups. One group would receive the updates, one group would not receive the updates, but all along the way, we're testing how do the updates impact defendants' feelings of preparedness for these court appearances and the legal process in general. So that way we can see with a lot more granular detail what the impacts of these updates are and overall legal information. So that's the very high level of what we would like to do here as a next step. Yes,
Sorry.
Please.
So, two parts. What was your initial goal for the engagement rate? You had mentioned you surpassed your original goal. And with the engagement rate, what were some challenges that you believe or assumed why it possibly wasn't higher? Was there any feedback presented by the defendants who were in this initial pilot of why the engagement rate wasn't there for them?
Yeah, so 20% seems low, but for these products, 20% is like actually really high. And that was even a surprise to me as I was like doing the market research, right? I can send you some like really more specific granular information about engagement if you want. I'd be happy to do that. We can exchange information afterward. As far as like specific feedback as to like why engagement rate wasn't higher, I don't know that for the smaller 100 people pressure test that we like ask the question like that, but the larger test I think would allow us to answer your question at the level of detail that you're suggesting. Yeah. Yes.
And to your example that you gave earlier with the two individuals that you knew, one that had experience with the court system and one who did not. When you're trying to identify the 600 subjects, are you targeting individuals that hadn't been, had any experience with the court system? Or?
Great question. So the way that we're signing folks up is through kind of like a traditional recruiting process. And so it will most likely be me with my booth sitting outside of the arraignment room with candy, among other things. I've found that for folks with active court cases, asking them to sign up, it's usually a yes. And so that's what recruitment is gonna look like. I don't think that it would be really great to like be able to test in what you're saying, like more granular, like, is this your first case or not? Unfortunately, I don't think we're able to like get that specific. But in our analysis, we can identify, right, like the group of people that this is their first case, right? So we can sort of identify that after the fact, but we probably won't be able to like identify that or separate folks as we're signing them up for that. Does that make sense? Like we just have to for folks, we need to like sign 600 people who have active cases, you know what I mean, as soon as we can, basically.
So is the $80,000 budget, is that a fundraising effort? Are you looking for, I'll call it program support, not quite the same thing, but program support from the county, or have there been other sources you've turned to?
Yes.
And the second question, there are risks in the back end of this, and those risks, mitigate them, especially the time delay, right?
Yeah.
About a 72-hour response, you might get it down to 30. That seems in some ways extraordinary. Is there an optimal time frame that you think looks more customer oriented, I guess, would be the phrase it.
Yeah. So okay, I guess I'll work backwards. So to your point about the time period, defendants have told us that sometimes it can take up to 2 weeks for them to get answers to some of their questions if they're reaching out to their attorney. Mostly that's because we know that public defenders are like their caseloads vastly exceed like their recommendations. So when folks sign up for Court Chat, we tell them that we'll get back to them in 72 hours to give ourselves a buffer, but our average has been 48, if that makes sense. And that's just because the folks at the law clinic have just been awesome and just have been like totally on it. So we feel like 48 hours is probably
better than what they're getting from almost every source.
Way better, yeah, way better. And 48 hours is probably like the quickest we could get it reliably. So then the other question is programming support. So the $80,000 is our programming support request from the county. We have another national funder. Oh, and then some of our list of funders are on the back of this pamphlet that I'm happy to share with everybody. For this particular project, we have a national, I don't have the award letter yet, so I can't tell you, but we have a national funder that's interested in basically funding our authoring and dissemination of the results of the RCT. So they can't pay for the implementation. They can't pay the $80,000 to implement the program, but they can pay for all of basically everything that comes after that, right? So the analysis of the RCT, hopefully we could get some of our results published. We definitely want to communicate these findings about, what we found and the impacts and what we can do next. And so they've expressed that they want to fund that, but they can't fund the implementation. And so that's sort of our missing piece right now. Did I answer all your questions?
You did.
Yes.
You mentioned the Public Defender's Office. Can you explain their engagement?
Yes. So our relationship with the Public Defender's Office goes back quite a long time. We actually co-taught a class with one of the public defenders at the Cleveland State Law School, and we basically mapped the experience of a person who's arrested in Cuyahoga County. So that's where it started. And then as we developed Court Chat, we engaged the Public Defender's Office in like two really specific ways. One is that library of case updates, right? So making sure that the library of case updates is like correct and appropriate for the legal information that we're allowed to provide. And then the other piece is they were very much involved with our initial pressure test as well, encouraging their clients to sign up for Court Chat.
And then can you talk about the steps you've taken to ensure that the language is accessible? I'm seeing words like consequences and potential, and those are sort of flags for me.
Yeah, so through our research, we have tried to gear our language towards basically a 5th grade reading level, because that's what our research has bore out in terms of what reading level to really shoot for when we're writing our content. And so that's really what informed our content. And then we've also had some folks at Cleveland State who don't do this work in a legal capacity. They send updates for people seeking treatment, kind of doing a little bit of a similar thing. And they've helped us with language as well. But we're certainly open to, improving it. And that's what's really great about the pilot, right, is that this is our opportunity to test if the language is appropriate. And then if it's not, we have the opportunity to promote it.
Two-part question. How, with the proposal, how intensive is the follow-up with getting survey questions out to those who participated to get more comprehensive information about their experience using the app? And then the other question is have you, in the initial pilot, and if you didn't, do you plan to kind of try and incorporate this in the second, have you seen individuals utilize the app for more than what its purpose is? And to give an example, I'm thinking of those who have inexperience with the legal system, or maybe they are not, really liking the attorney or the public defender they have, asking questions in the chat, that kind of utilizing it as if they could get responses for legal advice.
Yeah.
Has that happened? And if it hasn't happened in the initial pilot, how expansive do you plan to get to give feedback with those who participate in the 600 individuals for the future?
Thank you for that question. So for the second question, we have trained the folks at Case Law to make sure that they absolutely do not provide legal advice. Part of our onboarding process, even though it's super easy, we make very, very clear that we cannot provide legal advice, right? It's not going to help them, right, if we provide them legal advice. So we basically, if they ask us for legal advice, we say, I'm sorry, we can't help you, right? We can provide you information, but we can't help you. To your prior question, in terms of feedback, right? Because really the RCT, we're measuring impact, but we're really interested in what people have to say, right? So we're measuring feedback in two ways. One is we're sending them messages about feedback, so they can send us really simple, they could rate stuff and pretty quick, right? The other thing that we're doing is we're doing qualitative interviews, right? Where folks, and this of course is very optional, so if someone wants to participate or not, but we're doing qualitative interviews to get a lot deeper in terms of how did this really impact your case, and then also something we're really interested in is what were the really like stickiest, most difficult parts of the legal process from your perspective as a defendant. We're really interested in like knowing about that too. So we're doing both a quantitative and qualitative way of getting feedback from folks.
Do you have an IRB already approved for this? There's a particularly vulnerable population and there are very specific federal guidelines about this
Yeah.
type of research. So I'm just curious about your process there.
Yes, so our co-PI is doing our IRB, and that's for our research project that I was talking to you about, but the research, everything in the research project is in here.
Okay, so it's not approved
It's all
yet?
one. No,
Okay.
but it will be.
Is it going through a local university or?
No.
Okay. Where would you be submitting your IRB?
I can tell you after because we don't have the funding letter, I don't wanna tell you what university it would be from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure it's not a for-profit IRB that doesn't necessarily have
No.
the interests of those
No.
petitioning pursuing, particularly because the recruitment strategy is a little bit interesting and people are not gonna get an intervention. You know, a large proportion of people aren't gonna get an intervention, so the consent process has to be really
Yeah,
very carefully
yeah, definitely
considered
not a
and
for-profit
structured.
university. Yeah, definitely not.
I'm just curious, I know you say you work with the public defender's office. Is there any conversations being had with, say, some of the judges to get their buy-in as well as the prosecutor's office?
Yes, so everyone I feel like is like informed to different degrees about what we're doing. And our initial like sort of like easiest foray was into the public defender's office. And so we've had some like kind of initial conversations with judges. And we have had a couple conversations with the prosecutor's office as well as in terms of what we're doing. So we've really tried to like cover every base and talk to as many people as possible. And then for this bigger pilot, of course, a really important component is going to be expanding those conversations even more because we are, planning on recruiting a much wider audience. So I think that I'm really enthusiastic about building on that even more.
I had just a question about the use of the SMS technology for
Yeah.
this kind of information. I recognize that the intent is that there isn't any privileged, so to speak, information that's being passed through this chat. However, just being involved with the justice system and having a court hearing or other required expectation is information that you might not want in the hands of others, and SMS technology is pretty notorious for not being as secure as encrypted communications. Are there any considerations for the future as this app is further developed for increasing that privacy for the users, particularly given the vulnerability of the population that's intended to be supported?
Definitely. So a couple of things I will discuss there. So completely agree. The Department of Justice is telling us that we should use Signal and WhatsApp and stay away from SMS because of those exact reasons. And so for us right now, that SMS is the best way to reach and support people. But that doesn't mean that it will like continue to, that court chat will continue to be in this form. And so we're very interested in like other avenues, potentially developing our own app or platform where we could encrypt ourselves. That is very much on the table. But for like the purposes of this pilot, obviously, we don't have the, to like build an app to then pilot would be like definitely a concerning use of resources, I guess you could say. So we're using SMS because it's like the most easily available. Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you for your time today. Are there any other questions from members? Thank you. With that, I think we'll make our transition to our next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now we'll hear from Scott Skinner and Zoe Toskos from the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation. Scott Skinner was appointed as the President and Executive Director of the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation in 2024. The NCWDC is an independent nonprofit organization charged with transforming Cleveland's lakefront into a world-class destination that spurs regional economic development while ensuring equitable access to all Northeast Ohioans. In his role, Scott is responsible for executing on the Mayor's Lakefront Master Plan, working with existing lakefront stakeholders, and leading efforts across all facets of this complicated project. Prior to leading the NCWDC, Scott spent 6 years as Vice President of Development with the NRP Group, leading NRP's development efforts, underwriting, due diligence, and political approvals across the Midwest. Scott also led NRP's federal advocacy work in Washington, D.C. Prior to NRP, Scott served as a writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, a Peace Corps volunteer in the country of Georgia, and a corporate fundraiser for a large nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C. Born and raised in Northern California, Scott earned a bachelor's degree in English from San Jose State University and an MBA from the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Scott is very involved in the Cleveland community. He serves on the boards of Neighborhood Family Practice, Global Cleveland, New Village Capital Corporation, and the May Dugan Center. He resides in the Ohio City neighborhood of Cleveland with his wife and son and can regularly be seen walking around the neighborhood with his dog, Sophie. Zoe Toscos is the Director of Project Management for the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation, overseeing various elements of the project, including near-term activations, community engagement, stakeholder coordination, funding procurement, and organizational operational responsibilities. Before this role, Zoe worked in County Executive Ronane's office as Cuyahoga County's Special Projects Manager, working with various county boards and commissions and tasked with implementing Ronane's policy priorities. Scott and Zoe, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, and I apologize everybody, I usually have them take the Michigan thing off my bio when I'm meeting in Ohio. Everybody, so we got Scott Skinner, Executive Director of the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation. Was asked to come just give a couple updates on where we are with lakefront development more broadly to make sure this group and the county as a whole understands sort of different facets of the project, where we're at with each of those items, and to ensure that you understand sort of the full picture as you continue to read things in the news as well. My presentation remarks here are going to be pretty brief, but really want to talk about what you want to talk about. So at any point during the presentation or afterwards, please feel free to ask questions and interject. Fantastic. So this is just an image, current version of the master plan. There's obviously a 67,000 seat variable in the photo here. But this image is meant to convey a couple things. As we developed this master plan, it was done with 18 to 24 months of community engagement, including meetings in every ward in the city of Cleveland. That work is continuing. Was in Clark Fulton about a month ago. Am in Glenville in a couple weeks. So continue to engage the community on the lakefront work and on the planning for it specifically. The reason that I wanted to show this image specifically is, as we think about, again, the variability of a stadium, there's some core pillars of the master plan that have really been ingrained throughout that community engagement process, and that will not change regardless of the presence of the Browns. And that is a dedication to free public access to the waterfront. The fundamental principle of this lakefront plan, and the most frequent comment that we've heard throughout the community engagement process has been, folks want to be able to access our waterfront in Cleveland's downtown. And they want to be able to do that in a public and open and accessible way. And as we think about the uses of the lakefront, there's a couple real big challenges in why our lakefront has not been developed for a long time and why folks aren't able to get down there. The first is just access. There's a highway bifurcating downtown from our lakefront. It's difficult to get there via, there's only one public transit line that is not frequently utilized. It's challenging to get down there. And the second is, once you're down there, almost everything there is pretty expensive. You think about the Browns' average tickets are $80 a game. The Great Lakes Science Center costs $17 a ticket to get in there. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, if you're not a Cleveland resident, is an expensive ticket as well. Nuevo doesn't sell cheap margaritas. And while Voinovich Park is great, there's not a lot of free public space down on the downtown lakefront. So I go through that spiel as a way of saying that regardless of there being a stadium on the lakefront, that is a core principle. We also see this as a driver of economic development. while we're looking at raising in total a little under $500 million in federal sources for some core infrastructure work, over time, in addition to public space, we also see this as an area prime for additional private investment. And one thing we're working on right now is figuring out how to finance and build out that public space as soon as we possibly can in a way that will attract the private sector, whether it be multifamily, hotel, or any other use that you can see down there. So you can go to the next slide, sir. So one of the ways that we're doing that, and this is something that will be in the news and will be in front of Cleveland City Council in the new year, is by establishing the City of Cleveland's first new community authority. And I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about it with this group for just a few minutes and to answer any questions you have. Because when we talk about really complicated public-private financial tools, the reporting on it is not always as robust as we would want it to be. So what a new community authority is, it's a public-private entity that is formed by Cleveland City Council that is allowed by state statute. The Ohio Revised Code, NCAs were created in the 60s. There are 55 of them across the state of Ohio. This will be the first one in Cleveland. And what it allows you to do is establish a district, by parcel numbers. And then within that district, so long as operators or owners opt in to the new community authority, you're able to issue small charges on commercial activity that takes place within that district. You can then use that for public improvements within the district. So just to explain exactly how it'll work is once this is established, if the City of Cleveland's parking division decides to opt in, and they have to decide to opt in, or if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Great Lakes Science Center, or the Browns decide to opt into this authority, and again, it's entirely voluntary, we will work with them to identify what a potential charge could be. Think 50 cents added on to a parking spot if you park down the lakefront, or an extra 0.5% on concessions at a Browns game or at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That money can then go into a pot, sort of like it would in a SID, but it's a little bit different. That pot, the revenue generated from that is then solid enough for that pot of money to issue debt against. And the part of the design here, part of the plan here is, public parks don't pay for themselves. And as we think about financing large amounts of public space on the lakefront, this is one of the major tools we see as actually being able to execute on that. So again, an NCA is geographically defined through this process. Money that is raised in that geographic area can only be spent in that geographic area on things like infrastructure and public space. And then again, you can only assess charges if property owners actually opt in to it. It's not like a SID where if 60% of property owners opt in, everyone is in. Each individual owner has to choose to opt in as they're going through it. So you can go to the next slide, sir. So again, this is just a slide continuing to talk about what this actually is, that users have to opt into it, and then it can attain bond financing based off of that revenue. You can go to the next slide, please. There is a lot of public oversight here. Well, this is a city-run process because the City of Cleveland owns the land down there. There is public oversight more broadly. So this NCA entity will be subject to Ohio's open meetings and public record law. The NCA board is appointed by Cleveland City Council, and all charges and fees must be disclosed to the public. So what that means for broader Cuyahoga County residents is there's nothing that is hidden there. If this thing actually passes through City Council and it's established, and let's say there's a 50-cent fee added on top of parking on the downtown lakefront, that fee will show up on a receipt. So it's not something that is hidden, it's something that is out there and that tells people where that money is going towards as well. You can go to the next slide.
Scott,
Yes,
well,
please.
it's not a SID, we get that, but it looked to me like it was a TIF. But you're saying it works alongside a TIF, so it's another tax, if you will?
Sure.
Or
So
public-
it's not necessarily a TIF. It can work alongside a TIF. However, it is not limited to property value, I guess is the best way to put it. Like with a SID or with a TIF, you're really talking about property value incremental improvements, right? This can be commercial activity. It can be sales tax revenue. It can be things like that, yeah. So, and again, this is an opt-in, right? Both from the operator and the user. If you're a user and you don't want to pay the extra 50 cents to park or an extra 1%.
But net neutral to the operator because they're gonna pass along the
Correct.
charge.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the actual area. The image on the right is the most important piece of this, which will be the final new community authority that we'll be creating. So again, this is meant to spur and activate the public space component of the city's master plan by issuing charges on activity that takes place within that footprint. You can go to the next slide, please. And I guess I should have started with this in case folks aren't as familiar with my organization as I am. But the NCWDC, the organization that I run, is an independent nonprofit. It was set up by the city of Cleveland with the charge of executing on the lakefront vision. So we work closely with the city, just like I work closely with the county, but I'm not a city entity and am a standalone nonprofit. The entity that I run will be the manager of this NCA that is created, but it is a separate entity entirely. And the board of this organization is appointed by both city council and Mayor Bibb. Go to the next slide, please.
Would you say that you're a community development corporation?
My name is the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation, so kind of, but we're not financed through CDBG funds or anything like that. My organization is funded through $3 million of ARPA funds, so a one-time gift. And then, sort of designed to expedite and facilitate this lakefront development work and identify longer-term revenue strategies to become a more sustainable organization rather than rely solely on public funding or philanthropic funding.
You said the board is appointed by the mayor?
Correct. So the board of the NCA is appointed by city council and the mayor. The board of my organization, which is a separate entity, was also appointed by city council and the mayor directly.
And so would it, I guess in similar fact, that so it's a quasi-government?
Correct, yeah.
Similar to like the Cuyahoga County Living?
Yes, actually, that's a good comparison. So this is, switching gears a little bit, I guess I can stop. NCA items, any other questions, anything I can clarify here?
You're gonna wanna zoom out for this next slide too,
So, as we think about lakefront development and all the infrastructure work required there, one thing that we know is that it's going to take a very long time. And we're talking about a 5-year, 7-year time horizon before we see any development on that parking lot land north of the stadium. One additional thing that Zoe here is really taking the lead on that we're excited about that you'll see as soon as next spring and summer is trying to figure out how to temporarily activate the lakefront space. This is just the parking lot alone is 25 acres of public land. And while developing that land could take 5 years, I don't want city or county residents to have to wait 5 years to be able to access it. So this will be sort of a pilot program, the first sort of spring, summer season of what we're calling a near-term activation strategy. So what you see here are renderings of what we're going to be building on the lakefront that will be open to the general public. There are things that you can program around when the Great Lakes Science Center has events or when the Rock Hall has events. This can be highly utilized. You can bring in food trucks, you can bring in musicians, artists, and program around it. But this is meant to be, sort of passive activation space that is free and open to the general public on a regular basis. And then, one great thing about how this is designed is sort of the external barrier you see there are shipping containers that can be used by local breweries, local restaurants, local vendors. And we're working with a team that is based out of Pittsburgh, but with some local consultants as well to ensure that we're identifying a diverse set of vendors from all over the city and all over the region. Is that all of those supplies you can just put in those shipping containers and leave on the lakefront. So when the brown season starts up again, they're able to continue to utilize that parking space. So again, this is going to be out sort of in the news and in the world in the coming months, and wanted to make sure that this group was aware of it and understood the full context before. So this is, again, a way of activating this space that is city-owned or publicly owned space as soon as we possibly can, while we're waiting for all of the large, complicated infrastructure work to be done. So you can go to the next slide, please. Just another image of that. As you see, we'll be building a walking, biking trail along the water's edge. These are things that could become permanent if they're highly utilized, but are meant to be temporary in nature. Next slide, please. And just another image of that. You can go to the next slide. And one more, next slide. One more. Keep going. I forgot how many images of this I put in this deck. You can keep going, please. And there we go. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and then again, I'm happy to answer questions, is the North Coast Connector. So this has been in the news a lot. The North Coast Connector is, when we boil down to it, it's three things. It is a reimagining of the Shoreway as it moves through downtown. I'll get to that in a second. It is the land bridge that we've all been talking about for 50 years. And it is a multimodal transit hub that would replace the RTA and Amtrak stations that are down there currently. So I'll start with the Shoreway. The plan is from West 3rd to East 18th to bring the Shoreway down to grade, to slow it down to 35 miles per hour with signalized intersections every couple blocks. So different than the western portion of the Shoreway, which is supposed to be 35 miles per hour, but folks use it like a highway. We will have signalized intersections, crosswalks, bike lanes, sidewalks, multimodal paths that will connect into the county's trail as it picks up around East 9th to turn this into a city street. And that's important for a couple reasons. One is safety. This highway is a limited access highway, was built before modern highway safety standards. I'm sure when you've driven down, you've noticed how narrow it feels. And second, as we think about activating our lakefront and getting folks down there on a more regular basis, crossing over a highway is really hard to do. At least once a month, I take my 2-year-old and park downtown and try to walk down to the Rock Hall, the Great Lakes Science Center, and it feels a bit like a game of Frogger as folks are coming on and off the highway. It's one of the most dangerous exits in the region. And then the second other important reason for why this is necessary is as we think about developing our lakefront. You heard in my bio, I spent the last 6 years as a multifamily builder. One of the biggest challenges to developing that land is access. It's just really difficult to get down there. And in making this part of the city's downtown grid, you're directly connecting our downtown to the waterfront. So again, summary of the Shoreway, that is West 3rd to East 18th coming down to grade and slowed to a city boulevard. A portion of that is already funded. These projects generally get funded through large scale federal grants. So you may have seen in the news recently, we were awarded $60 million from US DOT as part of a program called Infra. That will cover the cost of doing this work from West 3rd down to about East 9th. A combination of that and using some of the proceeds from the city's downtown TIF district, as well as $20 million that was given to us by the state of Ohio. So that work is going to be required to start in early 2027. So a large portion of this is funded and is moving forward, which I think is really exciting. When I go to community meetings and talk to folks, they understandably have a healthy skepticism that anything on the downtown lakefront will ever happen. But this is the first pot of money that shows we're actually moving towards this. So that's the Shoreway. The second piece of the North Coast Connector is the land bridge. So that is a bridge that connects downtown. Basically, when you walk out of the convention center, you will be able to just keep walking to our lakefront. Right now, if you stand at Mall C outside the convention center and you want to go touch the water, it's a 35 to 45-minute walk, even though it's about 300 yards as the crow flies. This will turn that into a 3 to 5 minute walk to get down there. And again, that's important whether there's a stadium or not for folks to actually access the lakefront and to connect it to our downtown. You think about the lakefront as an asset for the Huntington Convention Center specifically, there's a really tremendous opportunity there. In terms of paying for that, we are expecting to hear back in probably the next couple weeks about another large federal grant that we've applied for this funding. It's a competitive process, but we feel pretty cautiously optimistic about it. And when Secretary Buttigieg was here yesterday, made a point to go out and take a look at this project and talk to us about it for a little bit as well. So if that project is funded, which we'll find out about in the next few weeks, that will also start construction in 2027. So all of this will become very real very quickly, and we imagine that will also start to attract additional development. The third component of the project, a multimodal transit hub. So is anyone here taken the Amtrak from that station downtown? So 2:45 a.m., right? So
Love it.
Yeah, it's great. So we have had a number of conversations with Amtrak, who is, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years, but at least right now they have resources for the first time in a long time. And Cleveland can be a pretty critical connection between Chicago and the East Coast, and they are actively exploring what expanding the capacity of that station, of that line looks like. Have also been in a lot of detailed conversations with RTA about what a new RTA station can look like down there. But what this was meant to be is a multimodal transit hub. So can serve rail, RTA and Amtrak, can also serve RTA buses as well, and any other regional buses also. setting it up for the future, thinking about autonomous vehicles and thinking about ride sharing. This is meant to be, you know, a way that makes it easier for folks not using a car to get down to our lakefront and to experience all of the fun stuff that we're trying to build. So you can go to the next slide. This again is the image on the bottom is showing what has been funded. That's the demolition of the Main Avenue Bridge. Next slide. And the actual construction of a new city boulevard from West 3rd to East 9th. Next slide. And then this shows the entirety of what that project is going to be. And you know, as we think about the future of Burke Lakefront Airport, and while no decision's been made on it, you know, continuing this road further east opens that up, at least as a possibility or an option in the future. So again, overall big picture, and I'm happy to dive into questions for what you're going to be reading about in the next 6 months around Lakefront is, you know, actively seeking development partners to help us build what we want to down there, starting to finance and fund the public space component of the master plan, a new community authority being established to pay for that public space, and federal funding announcements around the North Coast Connector and changes to the Shoreway and Bridge. So that was a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions you all have or artfully dodge questions about the Browns and Burke.
Well done, and the temporary space, I think, is a brilliant idea, so congratulations, because you need short-term use. The order in which you describe things, Shoreway, Bridge, and multimodal, is that the order of construction? Are those priorities set? Okay, I'm just curious, because I thought at one point we had some state funding for a land bridge. Did that go away, or is that part of the financing?
That's part of the financing
Still,
for this.
okay,
Yeah,
and now
that's
the
still
total cost for that is 70?
So the total cost of the land bridge component of the project is about $140 million.
So, okay, it's only 5 times what it started off
Right,
being.
but we are hoping, correct, yeah. I've worked in construction as well.
I get it.
But, you know, we are, the money that we've asked for from the federal government for the land bridge is $100 million as well. And then, the downtown TIF district, we intend to bond against that for some capacity. So there's a requirement for a federal matching fund for a lot of these. And I think, for the purposes of this committee and what you all focus on, you know, one of the things that I'm really excited about here is having some money in hand and still needing to get more is, you know, we talk about community benefits ordinances and minority business enterprise goals and Section 3 business goals. Those are all very, very important on all of the projects that are happening across Cleveland. You know, whether it's a small townhome project or even a large apartment project that is $30 or $40 million. What we're talking about here is hundreds of millions of dollars in construction jobs. And thinking about how to work with this entity, as well as we've already in detailed conversations with Ohio Meets Jobs, already thinking about what community benefits and what these targets are going to look like. I think there's a really unique opportunity to do something special around ensuring that we're attracting a diverse set of skilled tradespeople.
I just had a commentary, and I mean this
Please.
with all due respect.
Yeah.
You had made in the beginning of your statement, you made a comment on the past 24 months, there's been a lot of community engagement.
Sure.
I consider myself a little more privileged than other members of my community to be in spaces like this, and I have not heard of any community engagement
Really?
sessions. I work in the city of Cleveland, I'm very connected, I'd like to say, and I'm not heard. So I'm just say this to implore you to connect more with Black and brown led nonprofits and other organizations. You know, most of the community I know, I didn't get to go explore downtown Cleveland till I was in college.
Yeah.
My family just was not a top priority for them to go explore downtown, and I think a lot of people are in a similar boat, and when you think about community engagement and diversity of thought and what they're looking for downtown, it also hopefully can trickle down for the people who aspire to one day go downtown. But I just make that comment because I had not previously heard that there was actually community engagement sessions for this.
No, that's super helpful, and thank you for making that comment. And the fact that you haven't heard about it means that we weren't successful in reaching as many people as we wanted to, right? I mean, we've worked with Third Space on a lot of this work, and I think that your comment is helpful, that can continue on and expand and make sure that we're going even deeper into some of the neighborhoods than we had previously. But I very much appreciate the comment and Mordecai's fantastic and well noted. Yeah, thank you. Mayor Black.
I did take a look at it. I'm believing there's no eminent domain action in any of this.
No.
So nobody's going to be misplaced. There's no eminent domain action. Now, growing up in the Glenville area myself, right off of Eddy Road, there's been and my church is still there. There's discussion that's coming all the way down to Gordon Park, but that's not what you said.
No.
how will this impact Gordon Park and that area at all?
The Gordon Park is not a part of this project. I'm not, to be honest with you, I focus solely on the lakefront now, so I'm not sure who is working on the Gordon Park element project. Now, the city is doing some work there. This is not a part of this project. My territory ends at East 18th.
So this then complements what the member across from me said. There's so much misinformation, and with that comes fear and concern. People believe there's gonna get this windfall of money, or they believe they're gonna be displaced.
Sure.
Or they think it's coming all the way to Gordon Park, so, great project, I'm super excited about it, we've heard it forever, we have our own little Chicago and Magnificent Mile and all of that, a little bit of that. But, as this, project grows, I've known you, for a long time,
Yeah.
a different capacity. It is important, because there's excitement, but there's fear, and there's a lot of misinformation.
Completely understand.
So
And thank
looking
you for
forward
that
to how this rolls out as things become, detailed, more finalized, the financing, of course, is acquired.
Of course.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for that comment and appreciate it, and, can work towards getting better and getting clearer information out there. Are there, are there modes of communication that you think that we're missing entirely, or where some of this misinformation is coming from that we could be more proactive with?
Certainly, I mean, obviously, your persons of influence are your elected officials in those districts. And in our community, of course, there's clergy, and you know that.
Yeah, of course.
So, you get it in the hands of clergy, and they want to be a part of it. They want to be able to stand in front of their congregation, whether Saturday or Sunday, because there's a lot of Seventh-day Adventist churches in that area, to be able to share that they have the knowledge first. And it is a little bit of a stroking ego, but it's important that they continue to be those persons of influence, having the information before it hits Cleveland.com or the general population. That's important to clergy.
That's
in
very
those
helpful
areas.
feedback, thank you. And just to, I sort of took away my personal passion for this as well, and we haven't worked together and known each other for a while, and am genuine when I say this. Part of why I took this role on is I thought it was very important to make sure this becomes something that is for everyone, right? And that folks across the region feel a sense of ownership of, because this is our downtown lakefront for the entire county.
And that's the
entire region.
inclusion.
Yeah.
They haven't felt like it's been their downtown, it's been your downtown.
Yeah.
So to get them to come out of their enclaves, right?
Yeah.
For something that's 10 minutes away is gonna take them saying, this is for us, it's a safe place to go.
Sure.
So it's early to get them involved, maybe not at this stage, it's still very abstract. But as this moves along, it becomes something they can see and speak upon. We wanna get them so people understand this is being built for everyone.
Yeah.
Go downtown, it's for you too, and it's not been the message for a long time in this area.
Thank you very much for that. And I think as we look at programming some of these near-term things in spring and summer, those provide some good opportunities to try to reach out to those communities and make sure folks are, one, aware of what's going on, two, can get to what's going on, and three, once they're down there, can use this as an opportunity to talk about the effort more broadly as well, right? But thank you for your comments.
Sure.
Yes.
And you may not know the answer, because I know that there's still, but with was the acronym NCA?
NCA, yes.
I think the fact that it's opt-in is great, because I think there was the member had mentioned, like, with the layer knobs, like the TIF and different things, some people
all
might
very
have concern
confusing.
there.
Yep.
Has there been any preliminary thoughts on, like, is there a certain threshold that you were hoping for that people will opt in, and what would happen if there's maybe it doesn't meet a certain threshold that not enough people opt in?
Then we don't raise the money, right? I mean, it's all gonna be optional for folks, and I think so the opt-in is based off of the user's desire. So how this process will actually work is when the NCA entity is formed by Cleveland City Council, that entity with its board that is appointed by the city will enter into development agreements with the different operators and users there, and nothing is forcing those operators to enter into those agreements. So when you think about all the parking down there is city-owned. So you think about that land north of the stadium, there's the Burke Lakefront Airport parking, there's the pier, there are the Muni lots, those are all city-owned. We are setting a cap, like an absolute, and this is how the process works, is legislatively you set a cap at the maximum charge there can possibly be, which is meant to be a hyper-inflated cap, so you don't have to go back, and that's at $5. The conversations that we've had so far are in the 50 cent to $1 range for parking spaces specifically. For the other main users, the Rock Hall Science Center and the Browns, they're gonna do their own analysis of, one, do they wanna participate? Nothing's forcing them to. Do they see that, and part of my job is to show the value in building public space to those organizations, right? And then two, what is the demand elasticity for their products, right? And what is, because there's a really fine line where you wanna be able to build all the public stuff that is gonna be great and that provides equitable access that you wanna build, but you don't wanna price anyone out. And finding that line is sort of the next step in this process. What's happening now is just creating the ability to do that. And then moving forward, you'll work with those organizations and figure out what exactly it's gonna be. But to answer your question directly, it could be, thank you, Mayor, yeah. The answer could be zero, right? There could be, the city could decide that, it would be too burdensome to add 50 cents on a parking spot, or the Rock Hall could decide that, they don't wanna increase anything, and that's totally their prerogative, and that's what it could be here.
I do have a question for you, or I guess an offer of some advice. And that would be to engage Black and brown youth.
Sure.
Very intentionally as the project is moving forward and as the interim spaces are piloted and considered. When I think about some of the notions that folks have in our community of our youth, and their sense of belonging and welcome in spaces and the perceived threat that they pose and things like that, if there might be consideration for spaces that are co-designed and co-created with them, especially in this interim process, so that their presence in this space is welcome, as Mayor Blackwell was talking about, an acknowledgement that this is their space too. That would just be something that I would hope would be part of the process.
I very much appreciate that, and that has been part of the process up to this point. In planning for this, we established a small working group of sort of stakeholders and folks in the area, and a couple members of that working group were CMSD students who go to the school inside the Great Lakes Science Center. So that has informed this. Some of the basketball courts that you see in the images are a direct result of that. The skate park is a direct result of that you see in those images. But your point on engaging those youth at a larger scale to ensure they're actually programmed and folks feel safe and there's opportunities for art and all of these things, that's very well taken, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and
Absolutely.
time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, we have just a few additional items, and we've lost a couple members. One of the items that we will need to table is the update on the survey, because the item of concern did need a vote, and we needed quorum for that vote. So we'll have to figure out how to come back to that. But you do have in front of you the layout of our process. Dr. Wright was here with us in September, helped us to kind of envision what the community survey project and its outputs would be and what would be needed of us as members. And so we now have that really crystallized for us. The communications subcommittee has continued to meet in an effort to advance this survey, and we received the support of our subcommittee chairs for the engagement of members of those subcommittees to move the survey forward through your participation in that first stage especially. And so wanting you to know this, and our need is to get subcommittees convened in the first quarter of 2025 to get those focus groups planned, conversations planned, so that those survey questions can be developed and be as meaningful as possible, given the considerations and concerns of members of the body and community members. So I will leave that there, and we'll return to an important topic, which is how we intend to compensate participants in the survey and focus groups. We did get a bit of advice from the Attorney Inspector General, I think AIG, is we've gotten feedback that we are able to move forward with a structure for compensating participants, but again, we need a vote on that. So more to come there. So with that, I will turn to Director Lockett for the update. Welcome for the update on the human resources.
Yeah, Kimberly Coleman, HR Manager. I'll be really brief. I'll do the highlight overview. I'm here instead of our Director, Sarah Nemistel, and I'm going to give an update from our HR department. So exciting new policy that was approved for remote work. for our county executive employees and county council. County council did approve that on October 29th. So departments and agencies under the county executive's office are in the process of developing and implementing their own remote work policies that are consistent with the requirements that were recently approved by the chief of staff. So the chief of staff in HR, we are reviewing policies that have been submitted. So far, we have 3 agencies who have approved policies. Part of the policy, it delineates how many days a week you can remote work, up to 2, what are the requirements for the positions in your department. So those are some of the requirements that you must enter into the remote work policy once you submit it to HR. We think that the remote work policy will allow greater flexibility for our county employees. They can perform their jobs in a remote environment, and in turn, we can attract a wider candidate pool. I think coming out of the pandemic, when we interview, we hear a lot of, do you have an option to remote work? So now we're able to offer that as we're going out and we're trying to recruit employees. Also, in late 2023, HR engaged with a consultant to conduct a pay equity study for our non-bargaining classified employees. So there has been a recommendation for some pay adjustments, and we've included them in the approved budget that was sent to council for 2025. So we'll be sharing more information in the coming weeks as we try to roll that out for next year. And we're also in the process of reviewing proposals from vendors who want to help us reestablish a compensation philosophy for policies to ensure that all our compensation-related decisions are fair and equitable and transparent. And that will be the next phase of our policy initiative for pay equity in 2025. We continue to have a tuition reimbursement program. I'm moving so fast. I'm trying to let Lenore have a few minutes. And we have increased. We currently have 85 participants for the program for this fall semester. So we're hoping to make it more manageable, easier to apply. We're looking at working with our HRIS system, so the application will be online, so it will help people get into it, because it's a paper process right now. So, people move away from paper processes. So we're trying to make sure that it's in our on-base system. And we're gonna work with communications to roll it out again. I know we had some testimonials, people who've utilized it, how important it's been. And we wanna also use it as like I said, a recruitment technique. If we go to the colleges, you've got your bachelor's, now come on to the county, work a year, now you can get tuition assistance towards your master's. So try to use it also to help recruit a more diverse population. Our civility training program rolled out with our organizational employee development team. And as of so far in the year, we did have 626 managers and leaders that completed the training. And we've done over 1,200 employees that have been through the training. So we will continue with our employees in 2025. We took a break because now we're into our ethics training as county code is required. And just one more thing, we have an internal DEI committee that we work with. We do our panel discussions quarterly. Last year, we did 3 panel discussions in April. We did DEI Dispelling the Myths, spotlight on the positive and impactful effects that DEI initiatives have within our workplace. And we tailored it as trying to save DEI almost. I know the chair talked about that. So we did focus on the good that it does do and dispel the myths of what that people try to make it seem like, but it is not. In June, we celebrated Pride Month and spotlighted support and resources available through the county for the LGBTQI plus community. So we did that in June. And then in September, we did voter engagement and education, making your vote count. We had a panel that included our county treasurer, Essence Doucette, who was the National Council of Negro Women second vice president, and our Board of Elections Manager of Outreach Programs, Mike West. So we think we got a good turnout. We talked about a lot of different things about voting. We had a lot of questions about voting, that they even come the voter education for people in our county jail. As long as you're not convicted, they're just being charged with the crime, they're able to vote. The Board of Elections does come in there and they register and they let them vote. We talked about how to vote if you're disabled. So we tried to give as much information as we can to try to promote voter engagement for this past election. And we try to do that every year. We've had a voter symposium every year. And then we're looking forward to continuing our work in 2025. We have some things that we want to talk about. We're looking at more programs about maybe diversity and disability in the workplace. The struggles of people with disabilities, not just seen disabilities, but unseen disabilities. So that's one of the things that we want to talk about, as well as we want to push out mentorship. We have 2 programs that the county has where we push our employees to volunteer. True to You works through CMSD, and then we have College Now, where you mentor current college students. So we want to do a push for a mentorship. We have a program, Mentors Matter, that we're going to roll out next year. So we're going to have like maybe Mentor of the Month, have employees who mentor or who have been mentored share their stories. And sort of promote that, because we've had stories of people who say, if I had a mentor, maybe I would have finished college, or the mentor helped me through so many things, I want to be a mentor. So just helping our employees give back, working with our chief of staff, we have determined that some of the hours that they can volunteer would be on county time. So when they go to the school, they don't have to use their vacation time. They can use it on county time as for volunteering. So hopefully we'll get a lot of people signed up. I think it'll be a good program. So we're looking to roll that out the first of the year. And that's it. That's it for HR.
I appreciate your download. That's a lot of good work.
I know. And I cut it off.
Oh, wow. So there was more. We don't. Director Lockett.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to give an update since I believe Jennifer Wilson was here in August.
Yep.
So I'm giving an update on what DEI has been up to since August. Soon after that August presentation where Jennifer gave an overview, we did do makeup sessions for the management training. As you may be aware, the county did an overall baseline equity and inclusion training in 22 that was provided by Tri-C, who was selected via RFP. And then we did an amendment in 23 under the first year under the new executive Chris Ronay, to make sure that we continue with keeping the base of new employees and new management trained. We did in January, part of that amendment was to make sure we had a sustainable approach. So DEI was trained to provide that training. So this fall, we did the management training. Again, the target audience for the management training was newly promoted managers or newly hired managers, or managers that were not able to complete it from the 2022 or the 2023 makeup sessions. That was in August. We followed up similarly with the town hall sessions, which were diversity, equity training previously provided by Tri-C in 2022, and the makeup sessions they provided in 23. We were trained again similarly to provide those as sustainability measure in January. So again, we followed up in October and provided those trainings to new employees that were newly hired. That was the target audience, or those that did not complete it in the prior 2 sessions. So that was September and August and September and October. In September, we did our annual What's Next program, which is where we pick a topic that employees we provide a decent list of topics, and they respond and survey for what their selected topic of interest. This year, in response to the survey, they selected work-life balance and accountability. So in September, we provided training on those with that via the DEI lens on how that work-life balance promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you should make sure that any initiatives and programs that you're providing have that inclusive and diverse lens that reach out to the diversity and address the diversity of our employees. And also accountability was the other topic. So that was in September. There were several sessions in September. And I mentioned in October, we already had the town hall. But in October, we also had the first meet and greet. There are several different equity teams in the county. And they're in we have different buildings, while there's a significant population in the county administrative building, we have several different buildings. So we wanted to provide opportunity for different teams to meet each other. And also, if people were looking to start in their own equity team at their department, they could come to the meet and greet and maybe find out from other teams how they got started in some of their hurdles and wins that they had. We had a lot of support from HR's team came. That was on October 31st. We also followed up in November with the collaboration with HR and the Personnel Review Commission to have just a 30-minute session, virtual session on the county's hiring process. What we found is that when we had drop-in meetings with different departments or even feedback on some of our programming, was that there was a lot of questions about the overall county hiring process. What does it mean to be on the list? Why, if I'm the top scorer, did I not get interviews? Why do I feel like the test is not applicable to the position? So we just wanted to first, while there's a lot to be addressed under that, we wanted to first start with level setting on just having an understanding of the county's hiring process. What is the Personnel Review Commission's role, and where's the handoff with the Human Resources Department? So we provided, thankfully, PRC and HR combined to provide their expertise in that overview. We posted that on the county website. And from the name, it's County Hiring Process 101. So our goal is to maybe get to a 200, 300 level, is again to increase understanding, to empower employees to better navigate through that hiring process and have a better understanding of what they can expect and what it means for those different phases of the hiring process. We also in October had the third and final for this year County Vendor Fair. That's an opportunity for vendors to come directly. While we know with COVID that ushered into an opportunity to leverage digital, remote, virtual opportunities but we know that there's still a need for people to get that face-to-face, hands-on assistance. So we provided this year 3 vendor fairs. The last one was in October for this year. So that was provided. We had representation from our largest purchasing departments there so that vendors can come and talk to them about what those entities plan to purchase in the upcoming year. And also we had our Department of Purchasing there to help people get registered in the Enforce Supplier Portal, and also vendors that are interested in becoming a county certified SBE, MBE, and WBE were able to come and get information there. There was also development. We have representation specifically with the Office of Small Business, which is a new initiative that was rolled out by the county executives in May. So they were there to talk about the Office of Small Business and also development services that they provide for small business loans, grants, programs. We are planning on continuing that in 2025 with the 3 fairs, April, July, and October. And we're working now on the update to the forecast, which will come out within the next week or so. It must be updated by January 1st and July 1st. So again, we'll forward that to Case so that hopefully you all will share with your counterparts in the community so they know what the county is planning to purchase, so we can increase participation by businesses in those opportunities. So that was a quick spin through what the county's done since DEI has done since August.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Lockett? I'm grateful for the system, like organization-wide impact. We've been really eager to know that your work is touching the whole organization, and I love the training of the team so that you can sustain that management training across the organization. That's really awesome to hear. Thank you.
Thank you for the support and encouragement there.
Yeah.
We have a lot to do, and we know that we're just starting at the surface and continuing to try to get more significant impact.
Thank you. I note that I skipped over our GARE update, and this time we are not going to get one by email. Julia and Clerk Bird and I kind of thought about the importance of there being a sharing out, debriefing of the conference that Clerk Bird and Julia attended together. So we'll put that on our next agenda. We do need to get our calendar together for 2025, so please just keep an eye out. We're rethinking frequency and so on so that we can kind of gain some momentum in 2025. So we'll figure out how to get ourselves together to find those dates and get the body together starting in the new year. In the meantime, I'm just wishing you all a safe, peaceful season and new year, and I look forward to being with you again soon. I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.